We're now going to move into the next session, which is on designing a better retail India, the strategy next. And this is going to be about the millennial growth and the survival guide for retailers. To the panel, I'd like to call upon Ms. Chandrima Parikh, Head of Business, Reliance E-Commerce. Mr. C.K. Kumaravel, CEO and co-founder, Natural Salons and Spa. We have Ms. Lavanya Nalli, President, Nalli Group, joining us again for this panel discussion. Mr. Sunil Saklecha, Managing Partner, Nuts and Spices. Mr. T.P. Pratap, Co-founder and Chief Marketing Officer, Quicksilver and Woohoo.in. And Mr. V.P. Harris, MD Witco. To curate this conversation, I'd like to call upon Mr. Gautam Kotamraju, SVP New Initiatives, Myntra.com.
When they said we were talking about designing a better retail India, right? I was kind of, looking at an end state, at a future far ahead. Because for me, a lot of, with due respect to everybody present here, to me, a lot of similar industry panels and similar discussions revolve around solving tomorrow's problem, which is the future that we can see, right? Using solutions that are available to us today, right? But I thought maybe we're gonna, take a slightly different approach and talk about a utopian future, a future where I have some thoughts that I'd like to actually share. I've put them in a little bit of a document. I'd like to read that out so that I don't go off on tangents. And how do we get there, right? What does it look like to all of us? Because it's a fairly diverse set of panelists that we have here. We have entrepreneurs, we have corporate workers, we have people who've literally built their businesses from scratch, right? And people who are using digital and its evolving technologies that are currently, again, today available to redefine how people interact, right? So just to set context, what I'm going to do is just, for about 5 minutes, just speak about, what in the whole context setting. So, I just kind of say that retail so far, in my own understanding of retail, has seen a hop, skip, and jump, in the entire history of humanity. And if we believe we've got a far way to go, I think we're only in the middle of where we've evolved to. The hop, right? How I define the hop is, yes, we invented a wheel. We could take what we created to faraway lands, to other markets. We could try and seek new customers. We could fashion something out of the locally available materials. It was fairly sustainable. Again, a key word I'd like to, would like you to hold on to, because we're going to come back to this word later. Sustainable, but probably not very scalable. The jump that we saw happened with, let's say, the Industrial Revolution, where machines and automation and standardization of products, it could, it allowed us to expand retail as whatever retail was defined as at that point of time, trade, right, to basically very far away lands. It all, to me, culminated in a fantastic invention called the aeroplanes. It basically gave rise to airport hubs where, like Dubai, where people from, it was like which is basically like a melting pot of cultures, of people from different walks of life, people from different nations, all converging at one spot for a bit of retail therapy. Retail had become a bit of therapy by then, right? But the pundits, the trade pundits and the intelligence pundits basically said utopia was around the corner with the advent of the technological revolution, the whole internet. Yes, it was the jump stage where what we buy is less important than how, where, and when we buy. That is what is shaping our consumers. That is what is shaping our industries. So much so that today we have a term for what used to be the only channel. There were only sub-channels of that particular industry, which today has a term, offline retail, offline channel, correct? There was a need to invent that because there was e-commerce, m-commerce, omni-commerce, t-commerce, TV commerce. There was all sorts of. So where is all this leading to? I see a lot of us from different channels actually looking at each other with suspicion, with due respect to all the friends here, when saying, hey, he's a threat. He's not really doing it well. And again, stealing a bit out of the previous panel that we saw, where we heard Neeraj speak about how MRP is actually killing and fueling a different kind of a warfare between these channels. Maybe we need to do away with that, right? Do we need to wait for the consumer to evolve and look beyond value? Perception is the main lever to try and buy or make that purchase, or should it be more product? How do we educate the consumer? Do we wait for the consumer to educate and evolve, or do we play an active role? With this, I think I'm going to try and throw open the questions to the panel. I'm going to basically now move straight away to building your brand ethos, right? Designing a better retail India, we will also need to define what better actually means. Does it mean better than today, better than how we do things today, or better products, or what does better mean, right? And how are we designing it? We're not going to stumble upon it. The better retail India is not going to happen by accident, right? So, Sunil, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you this. On the whole, what does it mean in today's world? What it would mean in future? How would you ensure the same seamless experience, across all possible channels? And again, my request is to look at a fairly distant utopian future. We're all dreamers here, right? We all know what's happening tomorrow. We're already doing things today, right? Let's start there, come back here, and then start rebuilding.
See, let us first understand the basic fact is that the way now the entire dynamics of the business is changing is very fast. What I would say is basically, in fact, the shelf life of the entire business model has shrunk down to almost 3 to 5 years now. Any business model or any module you come with doesn't have more than 3 to 5 years shelf life now. So keeping that in mind, if you have to be the numero or the best in the industry, you have to be always on your toes. So from the ethos point of view, see, the basic fundamentals cannot be changed. The values and the principles with which we do the business cannot be changed. Like even Lavanya, last panel, she discussed that the pattern of the customers, the purchase patterns, the environment have changed, but the systems is the same only. So I want to give you one example, like one of the principles where we have that we normally follow that if I have to get anything I want from life, then I have to take care of the surrounding of the people who live in my life, like even my employees, from even my vendors. So these are the principles which we follow in the business. So this cannot be changed. Whatever the environment will change in the next 5 to 10 years or 15 years, but the principles and the fundamentals will not change. So I think we need to stick with the principles, and keeping that as the root, we have to look forward. And from the different business, omnipresent, this, that, see, I normally from the beginning has been believer that both the models are going to stay. It's only question of the percentage going to shift from here to there will differ. Maybe now it is only about, say, 8% and 90%, 10% or 90% can become 20-80 and then 30-70, but the models are going to stay. So this is the fact which I believe that we need to be focused on certain systems, and then we need to go ahead.
Great, but let's say somebody tries to start building a brand, let's say another brand like Nuts and, if you were to restart Nuts and Spices today, in a slightly different, your story, I've said this earlier, but I'm going to repeat this. I'm very inspired by your story, right? If you were to restart Nuts and Spices today, right, what would be your play? Because ultimately, you've got to first understand if there is a market that exists, or if that doesn't exist, can you do certain things to create that market? fine. Now that market also gets a slightly complex, whole facade of different kind of channels with different needs, different metrics, different input metrics, different metrics that measure success, right? So for a brand to be created today, how does it all play out? Whether it's fashion, whether it's nuts and spices, it's kind of doesn't matter. Brand is really an ethos, a philosophy.
See, here also I would say a very simple thing is any deprivation in the market or in the industry is an opportunity open for any entrepreneur today. Any deprivation which is there in the industry or in the market is an actually opening to any intelligent businessman. All these models which has been created now, this hyper-local market which we are all talking about is again, which has been traditionally been happening from a baniya store. This is nothing new. But only thing is now the aggressiveness has come into the market, so that is only has changed actually. And if I have to do it again, see, we need to understand the basic principles is like, as he says that is there market there? Yes, if the market is there, then there is opportunity available. Then you need to know where we need to position, because a lot of places I have seen is people mixing up this for the sake of getting the top line, they mix the entire business models itself. Like they are not able to focus on which market they really need to focus. Like we, from the beginning, have been telling that we focus only onto the elite crowd. Basically, we want to say that we are not a supermarket format. So we belong to a sect which slightly different than the supermarket. So that positioning has to be very clear.
Brilliant. So thank you so much for that. And to understand positioning in today's data-driven atmosphere, right? I'm going to call upon Pratap to actually shed light on how the whole digital play in gratification across channels, right, is opening up those markets, because consumers are really looking for a gratification. It's not just a purchase, right? It's our purchases have become more emotional than pure need-based, right? So how is the whole digital side of things, the transaction side of things, shaping up? Because in the previous discussion, like Alok was saying, consumer goes to a certain store and he has a mobile, but then he exhibits a different behavior on another store. So it's research, transaction, post-transaction engagement, right? So how is the whole transaction, which lies bang in the middle of this, right, engagement and research, how does that play out? And how does that help entrepreneurs, especially starting out today?
Yeah, thanks, Gautam. Just to give you a perspective about, so you were talking about utopia and what it's today and what it's going to be. So let's say, what is utopia Nagar going to be like in India, Indian retail many years later, and what we want it to be? And from a digital perspective, yes, and I personally, and along with our team at Quicksilver, we've had the fortune of sitting on the ringside watching how the retail industry has panned out over the last 6-7 years. When I say retail, I mean the consumer behaving across retail, across offline, online, across corporate, the same consumer behaving in a different way with the offline category versus an online category. And what we've been trying to do is getting this, what is today called this Omnichannel, how a brand can be present across multiple formats. So if I'm a cinema brand, or if I'm a brick and mortar brand, how do I make myself as a brand relevant to my consumer in a different ecosystem, be it online? And that's where the digitization in the form of gifting and gratification, we've been evangelizing and driving some category which is small in its current format. One is what we've been driving through gift cards, and gift card is an ecosystem. One is not saying that what we've been driving is new, it's a new form factor. Gifting has been probably the oldest hobby in India, right? From when Dasharatha gifted to Kaikeyi and whatever, and what happened was Ramayana and Mahabharata. We're not saying we're trying to do something new, but making that relevant to the Indian context and the Indian retail system is what, through technology, through digitization, is what we've been doing. And the response of the consumer has been very, very encouraging. One is not, and we are talking of changing, as you were saying, the cultural ethos of the Indian market, from how an Indian consumer should be looking at gifting. How do I make it relevant to the in the Indian context today? Where if I'm going for a kalyanam India, I've got to go with a big dabba, I've got to go with a big prestige pressure cooker dabba packaged nicely. So it's seen as a bada dabba hai jo shaadi ke liye de raha hu main, as compared to the actual value behind it. So that's the context in which the Indian market, Indian consumer likes to be gifted, likes to be seen to be gifting. And in that context, we're saying digitizing gifting. So it's a different way of gifting. It's a completely a mindset change, a cultural shift which is taking place, has to be driven by us. And the trend has been phenomenal over the past so many years. And as we go along, say a 300% growth, consumers gifting for even traditional occasions, be it a Diwali, be it a Durga Puja, be it Onam, through digital gift cards. One is not saying that suddenly in the spectrum of gifting, it's changed overnight from one form factor to another, but in the spectrum of gifting, the consumer has one more means to engage with his or her favorite brand. There is traditional gifting. I gift to my loved ones, I better know what her taste is. I can't gift her a freedom of choice. Hey, darling, go pick up whatever you want. I better know what she wants rather than gift her the freedom of choice. But in the other formats of gifting, be it impersonal, informal, or formal offers occasions, this form factor has enabled brands to get into, let's say, how does a Shopper Stop get present on an Amazon? How does a Chroma be present in a corporate enterprise? How does a small spa be present in a bookstore? So that's the omni-channel presence that we've enabled, where the gift card is the productization of the services of the brand, which is enabled by technology, by digitization, and that's something which is actually taking place tremendously as we go along.
Brilliant. So what I heard was, now gifting is another form of customer gratification. The transaction is taking, gifting has also another, basically come along and expanded how a customer can transact, right?
Customer can engage with the brand. So the transaction is, it's where brands have made it a success is it's not a transaction. So it is an emotional connect, one more touch point that the brand is providing to the consumer. If it's seen as a transaction, then it's dead. Because there are already other form factors available for transactions.
Sure. The reason why I called it transaction, which might sound very cold and surgical, correct, as opposed to an engagement and an emotional connect with a brand that for a mode of payment might bring about, right? So modes of payment as retail industry on the hop, skip and jump journey it's had across humanity, I mean our journey as humanity, has also seen a change, right? The reason why I'm touching upon this is, so if I go back in time on the hop phase, we had either barter, exchange, we had some form of cash, which every king would come and coin, right? His own currency, her own currency. Then we saw the plastic economy coming in, where it expanded. You could buy something today, pay for it tomorrow, right? And yes, it added to the scale, because ultimately, if we all headed towards a bigger scale than today, right? Today we have various forms of payments now coming in: mobile payment, e-wallet, m-wallets, right? And if gifting is also adding to this, that's why, I mean, if you, with no offense meant to gifting as a non-transaction thing, yes, it is kind of, a gift is always more emotional than just swiping a card, right? But do you see any other form? Because ultimately, what is better? My question was, what is better than today, right? Is it also a method of payments? Is it also, how do we see that evolving? How do we see the digital technologies, bringing about a change in this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I see in Utopia Nagar, many
we haven't seen the
10
future.
years later, who is going to provide what service is going to be so blurred? A bank is going to provide telco service, like we already have telcos providing financial services, financial service companies providing the telco services. So all these kinds of forms are going to be blurred. And if what is going to be the form factor for payments, it could be, we are seeing even the scenario where there are virtual currencies, cryptocurrencies coming in. So the consumers are going to be comfortable with across form factor, bitcoins. So the consumer, the regulator is confused world over as to what technology can bring into payments. So payments is one huge.
Hold you for a minute, because what you said, something which was brilliant, was the regulators are confused. There are enough loopholes in the law. There's enough confusion around taxation, retro taxation.
Absolutely, yeah.
Everything needs to go away.
Yeah.
Do you
And
see that going away?
yeah, and the interesting thing is that the regulator is so proactive about it. So the fact that this needs to change, the regulator says that cash collection has to come down. The regulator says that in physical retail, there has to be anti-money laundering measures being brought in, cash should be brought down, so drive digitization of even the payment modes, be it in the offline, be it in the online, so that there can be a traceability. So it behoves on the retail fraternity to support that as well, so that the entire ecosystem is driven there. And as we say, the regulator himself, the body itself is supporting this. And world over, those countries where it survived are the ones where the regulator's taken a proactive role. Be it, say, and even, I mean, a country like Kenya has got a fantastic mobile payments ecosystem, far evolved than many developed countries, because the regulator there actually took on the initiative that there's so much of an unbanked community. So we're not talking of a Bangalore sitting in Gardenia that we're addressing. There is a rural market, there is an unbanked community. How can all that be addressed? So it's not only the segment which is going to be already addressed that needs to be taken care of. So digitization of even currencies and payments is an exciting category which comes in there.
Brilliant. So what you're saying is, by doing this, we will also extend it to people who might not have access to current forms of payment, and we're going to expand the market. So even evolving methods of payment will also expand the market, bring more people into the fold.
Absolutely.
Right? Cash on delivery is something that we've already seen that works here today. It is kind of unique to this country more than any other country, wherever e-commerce has more or less taken, let's say, a far more mature shape. Now, continuing on the, let's say, payments front, but also factoring it as a part of designing a retail store. You know, the folio, the fixtures, what does a retail store of, say, 22nd century look like, right? We already know what the next few years of stores will look like, the next tomorrow store will look like, because there have already been progressions and projections of evolving technologies in consumer interface, if that is an interface for us, right? So let me pose this to you, Lavanya, right, where your business is very, let's say, dependent on touch, feel, a salesman explaining the intricacies of the work on a sari or on other aspects to a consumer, right? And also then the consumer, do you see a different kind of consumer coming to your store? Do you see the need to start changing your store? Do you see e-commerce? I mean, you were, ex-colleagues, but somewhere or the other, do you see that as a threat, or that as something that you need to factor? And is this a reality that you also face, where people come in, they research, engage?
So the point that you're making about the consumer behavior has changed, it has shifted, absolutely true. Is it a threat? No, not really. I think innovation, consumers changing, innovation all through the value chain, these are just realities. It's been there as a society, as a community, like we continue to keep improving. Now, I think the businesses that are well poised for success are the businesses that understand this and that are very tuned in to what are the changes that are happening. Now, is that innovation that's happened somewhere on a product side? Is that innovation that's happened somewhere in the delivery of that product or of that service? Is that a shift in terms of how consumers are now availing of, are discovering that product and service, are actually consuming that product and service? I think the most that businesses can do is actually to stay very, very attuned to what's happening in that landscape, and then try to build services around it. So I'll go a little bit back, almost like an anecdotal incident, and I'll talk a little bit about Nalli. Now, Nalli's been in business for almost 90 years. And 90 years where it's been in a business. But before that, if you look at it, we come from a community of weavers. So that's what we've always sort of been in. Now it seems almost quaint when you think about the sort of innovations that have happened in the businesses past. But I remember my grandfather and my father still telling me the story of, in the 1920s, everything was all vegetable dyes. So the silk yarn used to be dyed with vegetable dyes. And for the first time, there was this British-based company which came in and they wanted to introduce chemical dyes into the market. and like I said, it feels quaint now because that was about 80 years, 90 years ago. But at that time, it was a huge upheaval. And of course, there were things like, but people like their saris and they're not going to experiment with it. And I don't know about all this newfangled chemical dyes and all this stuff. But you look at where we are today. The consumer likes their product. They like to know that it comes in the colors that they want. They like to know that those colors are fast. They like that the product is not only comfortable, but it's also convenient. And that's the engine of innovation always. What is it that the consumer wants? Is your innovation either on the product or on the delivery of the product or on the consumption of the product by the consumer? Is that aiding and enhancing the experience for the consumer? And as long as that happens, I think that's a wheel that's in motion. We'll never be able to stop it. Today, what we're seeing in the e-commerce, in the omnichannel experience is that there's a lot of institutional voids that we've had. There's a lot of gaps that we've had historically, which these new innovations are actually bridging. And as long as that's happening, I think it's for us as business people to really embrace that.
Okay, thanks for that. But my one ask left kind of unanswered, because I really need to be able to see in a utopian future a new kind of a retail store, the offline store. I mean, this can be taken by anybody in the panel whose businesses are run out of traditional retail stores. Do we see a convergence? In the previous panel, a lot of them spoke about convergence. In fact, I'm of the view that, in fact, in my mail to you, I said, the governments will actually take note when all the channels come together, bring out a white paper and say, hey, this is where we think we're going to collaborate, we're going to work together to expand the market further than the pundits have predicted it to be. Correct? Because we're not really basing our strategies based on another channel strategy. And again, using the word design here, do we see the need to redesign our offline stores to cater to a consumer who might make the purchase there or who might not make the purchase there, keeping in mind the fact that you might need to collaborate with some other channel? I mean, Harris, if you want to, you already grabbed the mic, I'll be happy to.
I hope the audience is having a good time here. It's dangerous to ask a question like this to me. You were asking about the utopian future. Once I was in the factory of the largest luggage manufacturer, second largest luggage manufacturer in the world, and the CEO asked a similar question about looking to the distant future. I said that's terribly easy to answer. And what I said was, we are talking about luggage here. People wouldn't need luggage at all. We'll be wearing disposable clothes. The toiletries will be piped in the washrooms. Because of the acute shortage of water at that point in time, I'm sorry for all the apparel manufacturers here too, but that's how the world is going to be. So let's not go so far into the future. Coming back to your question about the design of stores, let's say you would like to go and pick up a television, okay? Your room back home decided the kind of size of the screen, right? And then you might have a technology preference, like LED, LCD, or whatever. Or you might have a budget. You go into a multi-brand store, and you have this particular size in mind and technology in mind or budget. What happens? Typically, you should tell me if you find a store which is different. Typically, you will have a wall full of brand A with various sizes. And then you will have another wall full of brand B. And third space will have brand C. Now, I want a particular size, and I went to a multi-brand store to see, let's say, 32 inches. I'd like to see a 32 of brand A in that technology compared to a 32 of brand B in that technology, and brand C, or in the same similar price point. But do you know of any store who's doing that?
Will technology enable that? Will you factor
Technology already does that in the offline space, yes, but in online.
My question, let's say,
in offline store, in a physical store, if you come to a Witco store and you are looking at luggage, you are looking at a particular price band, you will find a small aisle with brand A, brand B, maybe another product in brand B, brand C, and brand D, all placed next to each other.
That's a very unique Witco feature.
Now, if you want the next price band, you turn around and look at the other aisle, and you'll see the next price band. If you want the further higher or lower, you'll have to move out and go into the next aisle. It's pretty simple. It is what you people online do by dragging and bringing things together and comparing specs. So in some ways, online has influenced design here in an offline store. In some other ways, I must give credit to malls with the cubic feet kind of rentals we play in malls. We get much smaller spaces, so you need to really, retail is all about that, right? Physical retail or offline retail is very much about how you utilize your space effectively, and we've done that. Another aspect when it comes to endless designs, people are used to places like Nalli, and what I say is, even if the lady finds a sari she likes, she has to, I told this to your dad the other day, she has to reject another 100 or 200 saris to be happy with the selection she's made. Now, we had this problem where our earlier stores were much larger, and then mall stores are tiny. About the size of our washroom of a large store was the store in the mall. And we again did the shorter aisles, which kind of speed breaks the scan. Otherwise, you tend to look at the handbags from one end to another and then ask, where enna irukku? They used to, you guys, right? So they'll ask for more. So what we did is shorter aisles, shortening the speed of scan, again turn around, again you have to get out and go into the next aisle, and so on. That's another design feature which helped. Of course, at every aisle we have mirrors. You all can visit one of those stores and see for yourself how this element of design is done. And there are shelf talkers also with the features, etc. So what I believe is, with the way people are time constrained, we need to have edited versions. Again, both offline and online believe in this long tail, but people actually need, let's say, advisory to cut things short. Now, for example, physical, offline mobile stores are having a huge problem these days with competition online. But again, which store is actually serious about providing advisory? I know the kind of margins, etc., doesn't allow too much of a spend on this, but could be you could sell advisory separate and then the product separate.
Great thought, actually.
So
advisory is a service.
Advisory is a service. we've been giving it free. Sometimes people don't quite see it.
Of course.
If I could just piggyback on something that you said, the way I look at it, right, what the consumer wants fundamentally hasn't changed. They want what they want, when they want it, where they want it, and then there's a certain price that they're willing to pay for it.
Totally.
Everything else is the innovation around making that happen. There's also, and I'll stick to something that you touched upon. You see this more prominently with, say, women, right? But not just to women, but I guess I'll just use that as an example. People like to go in to a store, online, physical, whatever it is. First, I need you to show me what is the gamut of products that you have. Show me everything. And the reason that most people ask for that, I want to make sure that I'm not missing out. I want to make sure that your store or whatever this place is where I'm trying to finally make my purchase, it has every kind of thing under the sun. Now that you've shown me everything, I know what it is that I want. So no, don't show me all these 10 or 100 different things. Show me more of this particular type. And then I want you to start taking out more and more and more of very similar kinds of products and show that to me. At some point, I feel confident that, okay, I've looked at enough. I've somehow along the way, either aided by you or on my own, somehow I've come to a decision that I'm comfortable. Here's the place where I make a decision. This is the one that I want to pick. Maybe along the way, I have also bought some complementary products or picked up more than what I had anticipated that I needed. Now, if you think about this, the very, very interesting thing is it's the same behavior, whether it is offline or it is online. If it is offline, this takes the profile of, say, a person who comes into a store. I'll just take Nalli as an example. And she says, show me everything you have, show me what's new. She won't tell you what she wants. She'll just say, show me what's new and show me what you have. But back of mind, she knows that she only wants a particular kind of silk, maybe, in a particular price range. She gravitates towards certain colors, not so much towards other colors. Certain kinds of motifs, maybe not towards others, but she won't say that. So she wants to see everything, and then she'll say, okay, show me more of these pinks. Show me more of this kind of color combination. And then she wants to see that that salesperson is able to detect this is the taste preference of my consumer. I'm not going to annoy her by showing her irrelevant stuff. I'm going to give her exactly what she asks for. But at the same time, she needs to see that I have sufficient products of the type that suit her taste preference.
Relevant.
And if it doesn't, I should be able to sort of help her still in making a purchase. Maybe try in this other store, or maybe try something else. Online, pretty much the same thing happens. First thing, you're sort of hit by everything that's there. The more you start looking at certain products, all the big data and the analytics that we talk about is exactly that. What are the products that you have viewed but you have not clicked on? What are the products that you have clicked on? What are the products that you've actually dropped into your cart? That's the equivalent of your salesperson trying to detect what your taste preference is. Now that I've identified what your taste preferences are, people who've looked at this have also looked at these other products. These are things that I know would be recommended for you. So that's the whole, what we've done, what the online and the e-commerce industry has done is catered to the same evergreen need that the consumer has always had, but leveraging these other tools at their disposal. So I think if you think about the store to the future, one thing I'd say is I think the consumer behavior is always going to be the same. The consumer needs are going to be the same. The way that we make that need available to her, the way that we give her that tactile experience of, yes, I feel satisfied that I have seen enough. I feel satisfied that I had seen enough relevant products. And I feel comfortable that the purchase I'm making is the right purchase because I have a high degree of confidence. That's where I think the innovation will happen, but I think that's where also the solutions, those are the needs that the solutions really are going to meet.
Thank you for that, Lavanya. And so we do see stores changing. We do see stores aligning themselves to the compare and buy kind of models. Offline retailers are organizing their stores even in smaller spaces. We're talking about advisory as a service. Before we move on to service, I'd just like to share. So last week I was at an event in Bombay where a tech major it was about wearables, right? So a lot of wearables today are kind of gimmicky. Right, a lot of technology, the transition point where technology and normal clothing converge is either a bit gimmicky, like LED lights glowing out. I mean, we'll be all mood lighting. So if Pratap is kind of upset, I called him Prasad. Pratap should be, I mean, his shirt should start turning red, right? But, so to me, that's kind of gimmicky. But what was kind of encouraging was technology is manifesting itself in the store of the future in many more ways than we, and also on the engagement metrics, is bringing alive engagement, right? So what I saw was this digital hanger, beautifully crafted wooden hanger with a really nice LED screen in the middle, which is nothing but a social ticker, right? We know that social commerce is also another kind of yet unexplored, but a fairly upon us kind of a buying behavior, right? We, anyways, in offline, a lot of friends go together to buy and help them make the right choice, right? We have the social media doing something similar. So we saw this hanger, which had the number of likes that, you know, if people have loved that product, it doesn't like intent data. They might not have purchased it, right? But a great way for an offline retailer to understand what an intent data is, if you like something, yeah, I might see 20 things, I might like 4 of them, I might buy 1. But those 4 get a like, right? And ways to share that fact that you were there in that store, and you know, this one hanger allows you to do everything. Unfortunately, I don't have anything to show here what I saw, right? But it was brilliant. I think that's one way that it is all coming together, the future of the design stores, right? Now, that brings me back to the advisory services, or let's say service, right? So retail today is not just classic buy and sell, right? Retail today is also an occupation of a space where a certain service is provided. So in the future, when a lot of all sorts of channels are coming up, so services might not transition to being available on an e-commerce or an m-commerce kind of a platform, but access to the offline availability of this particular service, right, could play a big role in how consumers and what kind of consumers and what kind of value proposition are you putting out. So let me pose this to you, Kumar Vel, on this. How do you see yours? I mean, yours is has been a bit of a revolution in the whole SPA industry, right? So how do you see going forward, going ahead, a convergence or a digital play in?
I think we are one of the rare industry where you still can't have an haircut online. So to that extent, we are relatively safer. But having said that, what I look at as utopian view of the business and things like that is, one is, I think this business is actually started by my wife, where I joined halfway. If this room is filled by half women and half men, I think that's the day I feel the business has arrived in India and in the world. I think that's the first thing I feel. Over a period of time, women will participate a lot more in the business, and the room will be half filled at least. I think that scenario will definitely come. The second is, I see a lot of Starbucks and these international companies coming to India. I actually feel they don't make a coffee as good as Saravana Bhavan. I don't see any reason why they should. I don't have any problem in international brands coming to India. I want the Indian brands to grow international. There should be a time where all these people sitting in this room, we should be able to proudly say we operate in 100 countries. If we can say like that, such a day comes, I think we as an Indian entrepreneurs have really arrived. These are my 2 thoughts for what I call it idealistic situation. 5 years, 10 years, or whatever is the period for the respective business. That's my first thought. The second is, in terms of technology, I still feel haircut online, but we will go home. The customer will require the products, the services when they want, at the price they want, where they want, and how they want. This all will come. So the technology will be a great enabler in making that happen. I think that's something which is we are going to see time and again. It's already happening. I'm not talking about that at a very larger thing. On a lighter note, 50 years hence, we will all be carrying iPhone 50.
Great. So, I mean, iPhone 50, yes, but will we have consumers walking in with, having done research, hey, listen, will they be able to morph their pictures onto available hairstyles and say, hey, I can't get it cut online, but I can at least design what I'm going to look as an end product online, and then come to you and say, hey, why can you make me look like this, right? That's. So do you want to talk about that?
I think that's already happening. There is different ways of jewelry. What do you call? People are thinking jewelry. You can have an illusionary work and haircut. There is a 1,000 look software which will make you look in 1,000 different looks of how you what dress, and everything else on those lines have come. I don't know tomorrow if suddenly I can change her hair to me and all those things. I don't know. The world is wide open for that.
Face off, right? So. Thanks. Throughout the discussion, I think at various points, different panel members have touched upon sustainability. I spoke about how we were more sustainable, and then we went on to completely destroy our ecology. Somewhere we're collectively responsible. And a lot of us have tried, I know I have tried, to bring about, let's say, use organic materials with jeans, coconut button jeans and stuff like that, but somewhere it didn't really succeed, right? Was it the customer that was not ready for it? Were we kind of not ready to promote that? Were we waiting for the consumer to get that first? I mean, where did we miss the bus, right? Sustainability, you spoke about vegetable dyes moving to, fairly unsustainable, let's say chemical, for all our ETP plants and everything, we still more unsustainable than what we were, right? So Chandrima, as a product person, let me ask you, right? What would come first, an evolved customer who's able to make a choice based on more product and differentiation aspects, or a current set of consumers who are driven more by value? It's partly, let's say, the industry's fault, partly the consumers' lack of evolution also, if I may say with due respect. How do you see that playing out, the whole sustainability aspect in the product of the future that's made available?
Sure. So Gautam, if I can put it this way in one line, it's not going to be our choice anymore. I think we have been very successful in making many thousands of species extinct, and we are already in the brink of our own extinction. It was interesting to know that Lavanya, Mr. Harris, they mentioned lack of water, vegetable dyes. So this has been peppered vaguely across many conversations, but and this is very close to my heart, so I can tell you that a decade hence, or maybe 5 years from now, we will have a retail summit where people will have to talk about what we are doing to save the earth. And I will just give you an analogy of David Suzuki, and that really got me thinking. This is about a couple of years back. He's an environmentalist scientist. He gave an analogy of a test tube with food in it. And so there are these bacteria which are put in this test tube. So the test tube and the food is our planet, and we are the bacteria. So we all are talking about exponential growth, exponential growth of business, of economy. So what happens is population increases, therefore economy increases, right? That's the whole game of commerce. So these bacteria are growing exponentially, and that would typically mean that if you have 1% growth per annum, you double in 70 years, 2% you double in 35, 3% you double in 24, so on and so forth. So there is this test tube where it's kept for 60 minutes. So in 0 minutes, there are 8, so on and so forth. So there is this bacteria called Dave. He said, guys, I think we're going to be running out of food soon. So the other bacteria are like, hey, Dave, what have you been smoking? I mean, we are in 55th minute and we still have 97% of the test tube empty. Until they reach the 59th minute and they know that by the 60th minute, it's all going to be full. What do? So they're brilliant guys, right? So there's a scientist and they're asked to make 3 more such test tubes. 60th minute, 1 tube is over. 61st, the second is over. 63rd, the third is over. So this is exactly what we are all doing to ourselves, to our planet. And just to drive home the fact, guys, we are in the 59th minute today as we speak. And my sense is what we have done to our forests, the water, the animals, the fishes, so we've just gone berserk. We've just gone mindless with the kind of usage and wastage we've done. So I'm very sure today that fashion will be driven by the need to exist. Therefore, as an industry, if we do not act now, if we do not think of what we can do to be able to not, we can't reverse it, but we can slow down the whole process. You know, so I mean, we've seen it across industries, automobile industries. I mean, they have been the biggest, you know, the people who've been responsible for the largest carbon footprint. But they are doing huge stuff within themselves. You know, green manufacturing that they're doing, the CO2 emission regulation that has been put in place, and they are following it like nobody else would. So people are doing it, including electronic industry, electrical industry. And let me tell you, you know, our industry, the textile industry, is the biggest defaulter today. We are the ones who are creating the maximum pollution. 20,000 people in the developing world are dying every year because of poisonous chemicals that are being used in our dyes. So I think it's time that we thought about this, and I'm pretty sure, I mean, you and I are going to wear clothes which will help us to live. It's as simple as that. So it's only for our own existence that we're going to be doing it, and fashion will drive it. We have absolutely no choice.
Harris, you want to say something?
The Retail Association had done a little bit with the packaging, you know, with the Government of India rules also, the plastic covers which were given were charged for in areas where the retailers could afford, other than plastic, paper and fabric covers are there. But in supermarkets, etc., where plastic is undoubtedly the least cost product, they've been using but charging for it, and there was a dramatic fall in the usage of plastic bags because of that. People came with their own bags, etc. And there were other measures done for that also.
Yeah.
Personally, at Witco, we tried about some 15 years back, air conditioning done by vapor absorption model, which is a non-compressor driven air conditioning, which is you directly file fuel,
Yeah, I'm aware
gas,
of that.
or
This is interesting.
for a small size retailer. That was very unusual, and in hindsight, very foolish for me to have done that. What happened was, it was very cost effective when we did that, and we tracked diesel prices 10 years before that. Diesel alone was constant, and electricity rates were going up rapidly. So it did make sense, and we were firing kerosene and running the air conditioner. 2 years later, the whole model changed. Diesel prices were going up every month or so, and while electricity price, again political decision, remained stagnant. Tamil Nadu was the highest earlier, it remained stagnant. So it became totally unviable, and I had to scrap the unit 3 years down the line. But again, we were getting carbon credit. We could get carbon credit for that model. That was, and we did get 100% depreciation from the government for putting that model. So what I'm trying to say is, just like the rapid change which is happening over all the spaces and products, it's happening in this area also. But when it comes to automobiles, for instance, personal transport in the city, unless it is predominantly public transport, it's not going to happen. So automobiles can try to make it more efficient, more eco-friendly, but the real issue is it needs to be reduced drastically, and which manufacturers will do it.
So just to answer this point of yours, where automobiles have to reduce, and so we are all, I mean, today the consumer is all about, I want more, I want more, I've got one car, I want more, I want one house, I want three, you know. So, well, so I think, like I said, we will not be left with any choice. I mean, we had World War over oil, right? And the next one is going to be over a country which is the richest in food and water. The next set of refugees are going to be refugees for food and water. So eventually, I mean, nobody will have to really drill it down us, or governments will not have to put regulatory measures. It will come to us without our own choices. And unfortunately, if we are able to act now without actually, I mean, after having all the choices and we're able to take that decision now, and with the, the organic food costing more, the organic clothing costing more, I think it'll be a wise decision for many of us to be able to do that. Because in the long term, this is what is going to be sustainable. Otherwise, our children are not going to be seeing the future at all. Yeah.
Great, thank you, Chandrima. So I think with this, I think what we'll do is we'll end this because, and as I had outlined in the beginning, we are not looking to do any problem solving with this panel here. Solving tomorrow's problem with today's solutions. It's basically dreaming about a utopian future and what are the steps being taken today, what are visible today, whether it's sustainability, whether it is customer gratification, whether it is convergence of various channels across customer and therefore helping customers, affecting customers' behavior, which in turn will affect the way we. So it's a bit of a yin-yang. I won't call it a chicken and egg. It's basically a yin-yang kind of thing. So with this, I think we just have about enough time for a few questions. If anybody has a few questions, please.
Hi, I'm Kiran Ranga, Managing Director of Ripple Fragrances. One of the questions that I have is what e-commerce has done very effectively is make available products at a very low cost in terms of delivery. Going back to Kalyani's point in that the core delivery, the core want and need of the consumer has not changed, but there is better access of standard product offerings. Looking ahead into the utopian future, do you see retail stores being more of experience stores with very few merchandise that will make all our lives easier with lower size of the store, with the consumer walking into the store mainly to experience what they need to see and then buying online? Is that going to happen?
This is open to any of the panelists.
Is it? Okay.
Please, Pratap.
No, that's one possibility, yes, that's definitely going to be taking place. But at the same time, I say that technology is probably going to even make my bet for Utopia Nagar is that the offline is going to really take off to the extent that all the benefits that the consumer has seen in the online world is over the last few years is because of technology enabling online more than in the offline world. But this concept of Internet of Things, IoT, which is coming in, is going to completely revolutionize offline world. Today, at least in the Indian context, consumers like to go out of their homes to experience product, the textual feel of it. And so IoT is going to be actually come the scenario where I'm walking into a store, I'm living in Bangalore, I want to experience the South X store of Delhi sitting at home. That's actually a scenario which is possible. I can have the physical holographic computing mode by which the store can come to me. I can experience the entire merchandise there. And so where the consumer is going, the wow effect in an offline world is completely going to be dramatically different from what it is today. Apart from the fixtures component, merchandising component, I think what I see is the offline world itself having the wow impact that the consumer has had in the online scenario all these years. So it's really going to come back with a bang is what my take on the scenario is going to be.
I thought I answered that question earlier. We had 3,000 square foot store ending up as a 900 square foot store in a mall. Of course, I gave credit to the mall rentals and design credit to online models.
So just about the last question, please. Question or possibly an articulation of a vision that you might have for the future.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Sir, I have a marketing company where we represent a lot of fashion brands plus designers. Recently, me and my wife, we ventured into hospitality industry also. We're running 2 restaurants in Bangalore. My question to Mr. Sunil, I think Nuts and Spice, is you said any business model cannot sustain more than 3 to 5 years. Whereas we have learned over a period of time, we need to have a vision to run a long-term business. So I just wanted to know the definition of that small-term business or the sustainability of that duration of 3 to 5 years.
No, that is where we need to invest more onto the innovation part, basically, because the customer tastes is changing. The business model shelf life is coming, but that doesn't mean that all the business is going to get over or get closed down. If you see that way, all the business has to evolve with the time. You have to go with the flow. Because when the customer's pattern, see, if you take 15 years back, when we started Nuts and Spices, olive oil was used to be a word which people used to think that only for massage they are using it. But today, if you see, people are eating it in a big way. Actually, the volumes, what we have seen is huge. I would say about even, it has increased by about 500 times. So that's a huge change has come in just 15 years time. Like green tea, about say 2000, 2001, green tea was a new word for in the entire market. But today every house is using it. So the question is we need to have that innovative always be there. And if you see like the pasta thing was about same thing, but 15 years back pasta was nothing. But today if you see pasta has become every household product. So we have to be with the market. So that's the only thing. Even in restaurant, you have to come with your fresh menus every time, like create a new season. That's the only way.
Thank you.
To add to Mr. Sunil, I think just hear the consumer carefully. Just hear them and you'll know what to do.
With that, I think we'll close unless there is someone who would like to share his or her view of the utopian future. Brilliant. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for dreaming with us. It's kind of important.